The wind sweeping across the Serengeti plains carried no familiar peace. It bore only the scent of dry grass, the searing heat, and a profound despair. Ranger Alara lay slumped, her body lashed tightly to the trunk of an old acacia tree, the rough sisal rope biting deep into her flesh. The poachers had left her as bait, knowing she couldn't break free. In that moment of helplessness, she could only stare into the vast blue sky. And then she saw it. A massive, looming dark shape approached from the distance. But it was not a lion or a hyena, as she expected. It was Keto, a 400-pound silverback gorilla. The Serengeti was a kingdom of big cats and antelopes, not this giant primate. It was an image that defied all natural rules, yet it was Alara's only thread of hope. Keto was not native. He was a unique individual Alara had rescued months ago from an illegal trade ring near the Congo border, subsequently relocated to a temporary recovery zone near the edge of these plains. Keto's gaze settled on Alara's face. It was not the stare of a predator, but one of clear recognition, a miracle that science calls advanced primate social memory. The V-shaped scar on Keto's right finger, which Alara herself had stitched, was proof of an unspoken debt. Alara closed her eyes and prayed. Would the gratitude of a creature far from its home be powerful enough to overcome wild instinct and the dangers of the Serengeti? This is a story about a bond that transcends every biological and geographical barrier, proving that kindness is the strongest language of all. Keto approached, his colossal shadow offering Alara partial cover from the harsh sun. He was neither aggressive nor rushed. His first action was to use his powerful yet incredibly deft fingers to touch and probe the sisal ropes. Alara felt the inherent warmth and strength in that contact, an astonishing contrast to his current gentle purpose. Instead of pulling violently or biting down, Keto began a meticulous task, searching for the knot's weak point. At that moment, Alara recalled the 3 days she spent caring for Keto's injured infant at the recovery center. She had used her own hands to clean the wound, apply bandages, and feed the infant. Keto, when he was there, though maintaining a cautious distance, had observed her every action. Scientists term this episodic memory in primates, the ability to recall the specifics of a past event and use that information to inform current behavior. Keto didn't just remember Alara, he remembered her kindness. Keto's eyes were locked on the knots. He used his large thumb to gently pry and tug at the strands. It was an extremely slow and difficult task. The ropes were stiff with morning dew and Alara's perspiration, tightened almost impossible. Keto's movements displayed a near-absolute patience, taking immense care to avoid cutting Alara's skin. However, his presence on the open savanna, an unfamiliar environment for a jungle-dwelling gorilla, added to the tension. Keto repeatedly glanced around, ears twitching, vigilant for any movement on the horizon. He was a formidable warrior in the dense forest, but here, under the glaring sun with no cover, he felt exposed and anxious. His unease manifested in heavy, frustrated sighs. Keto encountered a complex knot lodged against Alara's chest, which was extremely difficult. He attempted to use his lips and incisors to pull a thinner strand, but immediately stopped, fearing he might tear her skin. It was an expression of frustration, complex emotional behavior. Alara managed to croak small sounds of encouragement. Their silent communication was central to this narrative, evidence that trust can transcend species barriers. Keto was a dedicated rescuer, but the physical and geographical challenges were testing his loyalty to the limit. Yet, the ropes were not the only threat. The Serengeti is rife with deadly dangers, and they had just been spotted. At that precise moment, Keto froze. His gaze shifted from the ropes to a distant point on the horizon. A small, sharp howl echoed on the wind. Danger never travels alone. The rescue effort was about to give way to combat. That cold, sharp howl repeated, closer and clearer. Not the roar of a lion, but the alarming call of the African wild dogs. They are known as the Serengeti's most efficient and savage pack hunters. Keto immediately ceased all attempts to untie Alera. His massive body shifted from concentrated focus to a gargantuan defensive posture, tensing completely. He knew the scent of blood and the stillness of potential prey attracts these opportunistic hunters. Keto was instantly faced with a desperate choice. Continue the slow process of untying the ropes, a process that would risk both their capture or defend Alera from the imminent threat. Keto made his decision without hesitation. He turned his back on Alera in the knots, placing himself completely between the ranger and the approaching pack of wild dogs. A terrifying, deep, powerful roar, unusual compared to a lion's, erupted from Keto's chest. Amplified by his fear and fury, this roar was a decisive, challenging sound of a guardian. The wild dogs, numbering about 6, emerged from the low scrub, their coats mottled and eyes cold. They paused momentarily at Keto's overwhelming size, but their instinct and hunger quickly overcame caution. They fanned out, employing their familiar pack hunting tactic. The fight was swift and furious. Keto, built for the solid floor of the forest, was forced to fight on the uneven, slippery ground of the savannah. He did not chase. His sole purpose was to hold his ground, shielding Alera. Keto used his prodigious strength to swipe a dog attempting to flank him. He slammed his fist onto the ground, unleashing aggressive bluff charges that forced the pack to retreat. Alera lay there, her heart pounding in her ears. She felt a profound, paralyzing guilt. Her savior was fighting for her life, placed in an unfamiliar environment solely because of her. Every strike, every dodge by Keto was a life-saving action. His loyalty was truly extraordinary, a steadfastness unswayed by instinct or danger. Eventually, Keto successfully drove the wild dogs back into the bushes. They hadn't fully left, merely retreating to observe, waiting for an opening. Keto turned back to Alera, panting heavily, exhausted, and sporting a deep superficial scratch on his shoulder. He looked at the ropes, then looked at Alera with a silent, profound frustration. "I kept us safe. Now how do I set you free?" Keto's empathy had overcome all barriers, but he needed a solution that required more than just primal intelligence. This was the moment they needed coordinated strategy, because on the Serengeti, opportunities never last. Keto stood upright, breathing heavily, his face etched with fatigue and frustration. He looked down at the knots again and then at Alera, his eyes pleading for a solution. Alera understood that, although Keto possessed immense strength and willpower, he could not perfectly distinguish between the rope and her flesh when using his teeth. His caution was the barrier. Adrenaline and desperation fueled Alera. She began to act. Gritting her teeth, she continuously rubbed the back of her right hand, where the rope was slightly looser, against the rough bark of the acacia tree. The bark tore at her skin, but she ignored the pain, focusing only on fraying the sisal fibers. She repeated the motion, trying to thin a specific point of knot. Keto watched her every move with intense concentration, his intelligent eyes tracking each fraying strand. This provided evidence of the advanced observational learning capabilities of a silverback. They don't just recognize actions, they can infer the purpose behind them. When Alera felt the rope was significantly weakened at that spot, she strained her neck to nod decisively toward the weak point, then looked at Keto and opened her mouth in a silent command. It was a risky, near impossible communication, but Keto's eyes appeared to register the instruction. He lowered his head again. This time, there was no probing or hesitation. Keto took a deep breath. With a swift, precise, and perfectly controlled, powerful movement, he bit down hard on the thin section of the rope. Snap! The rope broke. Alera tumbled onto the side, her body hitting the dry grass of the savannah with a painful thud. She was free. She immediately scrambled backward, a natural, uncontrollable reflex when standing before a giant animal like Keto. But the danger was not over. Just then, another sound reached them, the distinct noise of an approaching car engine. The poachers had returned. Keto whirled around. He stood tall, using his overpowering size to shield Alara in the crucial seconds it took for her to scramble to cover behind a large rock formation nearby. Keto let out a short, authoritative growl, not to attack, but to assert, "This is my territory." Alara had escaped the poacher's sight, and the sound of their truck faded away. She leaned against the rock, her body aching, but her spirit completely revived. The immediate danger had passed. She looked at Keto. He had turned back to her, standing there, breathing steadily. There was no remaining anger or panic, only a calm, unwavering gaze. This was the moment of atonement and gratitude. Alara slowly, deliberately extended her battered hand. Keto, the massive silverback of the jungle lost on the savannah, understood. With a humility and trust that science cannot fully explain, he slowly lowered his huge head. Alara gently scratched the base of his scarred ear, a gesture she had used while treating his baby. It was a profound, wordless connection, a final thank you without language, an ultimate acknowledgement of the debt paid. Following that moment, Keto let out a soft snort, like a final farewell. He turned away, not hurriedly, but with quiet dignity, and walked slowly into the distance, carrying his silent majesty as he moved towards the thicker scrub on the Serengeti Ridge. Alara sat alone, safe and utterly astonished. This story is not just about a rescue. It's an affirmation of a universal law. Kindness is the ultimate survival tool. Keto, thousands of miles from home, lost in an alien environment, did not forget the woman who saved his family. His loyalty overcame both geographical barriers and the instinct for self-preservation. It proves that, for intelligent creatures, empathy can build alliances that transcend all human prejudices. For Alara, the greatest reward for her conservation work was not the later capture of the poachers, but the confirmation that the link between species is real and immensely powerful. Keto's presence on the Serengeti was an impossibility, but his loyalty was a fact. If this story has given you hope, if you believe that kindness can exist in the most distant places, share this video now. Tell us in the comments, where have you found an unexpected connection in your life? And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in the wild saga of empathy and survival. Kindness is the only ecosystem worth saving.